Her name is Adelle Onyango. Karibu sana to Full Circle with Joyce.
Thank you so much for having me. Congratulations.
Thank
300 episodes,
you.
that's major.
Yes.
So kudos to you for that.
Asante.
Yeah.
It's so great to have you here on the show. And you've just been killing it out there, like doing amazing things, which is
Thank
why I feel
you.
like you're doing great things. You're leaving your mark. You're letting your talent shine. And
Exactly.
now you have a podcast on radio.
Yeah,
Are you
it's
the first one in Kenya?
yeah, they said in East Africa, but for sure I know in
Wow.
Kenya, and I'm so excited because it was. Have you ever tried to think of something that you really want to do and you feel mad because you can't see it happening around
Yes.
you, and that sometimes discourages people from
Yeah.
pitching or pursuing it. And so that's where I was when I thought of like syndicating podcasts.
Yeah.
And so having it happen, I'm just like, whoa, 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 what?
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
really amazing. And we're going to be getting into that story of just even how you got into podcasts because you're a radio queen and you had done that for how long?
10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
How do you walk away from something after 10 years?
It's not easy, honestly. And I think it's not easy for two things. One, you've been doing it for 10 years. So I started at a radio station called 1FM and then I moved to Kiss FM. And even that move, I didn't have a break. I had a weekend to learn the new system,
Yeah.
Kiss, and then I started. And so it's hard to leave something that it's a routine you've built for 10 years.
Yeah.
But also I think it's hard because as Kenyans and maybe as Africans, we kind of view having a job as synonymous with success. And so that conditioning, when you're about to quit a job, especially to pursue something of your own or to start a business or whatever,
Tell me
you
about
have to like unlearn
Yes.
so much.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to educate your support system of like, I'm
Yeah.
not going crazy.
Yes.
And so that's, I think, also contributes to what makes it a hard
Yes.
step. But inside, you always know when it's time to move on to the
Yeah.
next thing.
And you
Yeah.
just know that there's some decisions that you know you'll absolutely regret
Yeah,
if you don't do it. I totally
exactly.
relate because when I was first on media and I had to leave to go to school,
Yeah.
people thought I was crazy. Like, why? You already have a
Exactly.
show. Why do you need school? And for me, that was something very important.
Yeah.
And even for you, I think really at the time that you were making the decision to leave, in many ways, you were sort of getting to or even at the peak
Yeah, I
of your
felt
radio
it.
career.
I felt it in a traditional sense. I felt like I'm bored.
I love it.
I'm bored. I can do this in my sleep.
Yeah.
I need a challenge. And I felt, I just turned 30.
Yeah.
And I was like, I read that this is the age where you're meant to do everything that scares you.
Yeah.
But I don't regret it. I don't
Okay.
regret it at all.
No, and
Yeah.
clearly you shouldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, you've done amazing things since then. You've been celebrated as one of Facebook's 2019 Icons of Change, Africa Youth Awards 100 Most Influential Young Africans for 2019, OK Africa's 100 Extraordinary African Women for 2018, and BBC's 100 Inspirational and Innovative Women in the World for 2017. I mean, kudos.
Thank you so much. It's like also humbling. I'm just
I'm
like, oh
sure
my
now
God.
all those people who are questioning, like, are you sure about this? Like, now they look at you and just like, go, girl.
Yeah, yeah. And I think people identified with it. When I made the announcement, like most of the comments were not even like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
It was more of like people saying, I totally understand that. People tagging their friends who I could gauge were having an issue trying to
Transitioning.
transition.
Yeah.
And so I think people kind of like related with where I was at the time. Yeah.
So tell me about. There's two things, of course, that really stick out. Is you set up an initiative as well, and then there's your podcast, and we're going to touch on those two. But tell me about the Adele Onyango initiative.
Yeah, so I started, it launched in December 2018, which was so exciting for me, but I think it was already there, but like kienyeji before. And it started really being on radio, and most of my radio shows have been targeting the youth.
Yeah.
And what would happen is, yes, I'd be in studio and they'd call in or they'd tweet and whatever, but I also used to have hangouts with the listeners of my shows. And I remember once having this conversation with somebody, this guy who was so, like, every topic on radio, he would comment. He was the first one, even
Yes.
before we get into studio, he's already tweeted.
Yeah.
And, I was like, oh, so what are you doing with your life? And he's like, I was like, are you in uni? And he said, no, because my parents can't afford to take me to uni. And he said it so matter of factly, like it wasn't an emotional thing.
Yeah.
It was just
You
like
just
on to the
accepted
next.
it. Yeah.
And I remember being so disturbed by that. I felt a bit guilty because I was like, every day this young man gives me all his attention. And what do I give back? How do I help his situation? And then we started to do a lot of like charity hangouts. Like we'd go to different children's homes and things like that. It was really driven by the youth who were listening to my show, and by this time they had named themselves Team Adelle.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, let's have like a method to this madness.
Yeah.
Can we create programs that can help you be better prepared for employment or for entrepreneurship, even if you cannot afford to go to university, or regardless of your background? I just feel like that shouldn't stop you
Yeah.
from fulfilling what you're here for.
Yeah.
And everybody should be able to help the next person do that. And so, we had a brainstorm to try and understand what are the issues that young Kenyans are facing. And from that, we created programs. So there's the job shadow program where a young person gets to shadow. Let's say if they wanted to get into TV, they would shadow you for 2 weeks. And just from that, we got like our partner for that is Fuzu. And we got people hired after 2 weeks.
Wow.
They got hired. We got some of the businesses that took in some of the youth members actually giving the youth members their payroll. Like, okay, fine. For the next 2 weeks, you're going to be handling the payroll for this branch.
Wow.
And from that experience, you could never get even in a university classroom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And afterwards, you get papers just to help you. So, you get certified that you did go through this program, so that when you're looking for the next opportunity, you're a bit raised. But the initiative also looks at, because everybody knows I'm very passionate about gender-based violence, specifically rape, and to give Kenyan women who have survived rape access to a free group therapy program. So for that, I partnered with Carolina for Kibera, who are doing amazing things in Kibera, even currently with the COVID-19.
Yeah.
And
that program is called Safe 24/7.
yes, yeah. So it's called Safe 24/7. It's basically on the premise that women deserve to be safe.
Yeah.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And you know that psychosocial support therapy is very important, especially for survivors of trauma. But it's expensive, And so we were just trying to see how can we make it such that it is free. So as a survivor, all you have to think about is clearing your schedule.
And showing up.
Just showing up. And even the showing up we take care of. So we fundraised in November last year because I couldn't find somebody to fund the program.
Okay.
And I was like, you know what? Maybe there are good people out there. Perhaps they are. Let's just put it out there and get people to like fundraise for this.
Yeah.
And during 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, I put it out. And in the 16 days, we raised 400,000 Kenya shillings. And then we got, what are they called? Actual clinical psychologists to come on board and volunteer to design the curriculum.
Wow.
Because you're a doctor. These are patients. So it's not something that you can do in a haphazard manner.
Yeah.
And so the curriculum is designed. And so what the fundraising caters for is for the running of the program, the transport, getting the survivors there, and a toolkit as well.
Yeah.
Because then after the program, they'll have something to help them with coping exercises and things like that.
Amazing.
Yes.
And how long is the program then?
When we started, we thought it was going to be once a week for 10 weeks, but it's going to be once a week for 14 weeks.
Wow.
And the first cohort was actually meant to kick off in April. But we have to like push it further as we kind of like monitor the COVID situation. Yeah.
Well, still, I mean, the groundwork is laid.
Yeah,
and I think it's just, if it wasn't for the times, that would be running.
Yeah.
So really big up to you. And we're going to take a break. And when we come back, I want to hear a bit more about her podcasts, which are just, shaking things up here in the country. And in a sense, I guess you've returned to your first love, which was still radio in some like... In some way, you've returned there. So do send me your love for Adelle on 22999. You can also reach me on social media at SwitchTVKE on Instagram and at SwitchTV Kenya on Facebook and Twitter. And we'll be here continuing our conversation with her in just a bit. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, welcome back to Full Circle with Joyce. I'm here with the one and only Adelle Onyango, and my goodness, she's an icon in her own right.
Thank
Big
you
up
so
to
much.
you
Thank
for the
you.
work that you're doing, and just I think using your platform for good is something very inspirational to a
Thanks.
lot of people, right? That we can't just be here on this earth just for ourselves.
That's true.
Yeah.
I think legacies are built by something bigger than you. You know what I
Absolutely,
mean? That's how you
absolutely.
live even when you're not.
Yeah, that's how you
living.
build legacy
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of love for you on our platforms here this morning. Someone here says, I'm innocent from Donnie. I'm loving the show. Team Adele here. Wengine anasema, good morning, Joyce. Niman James from Mombasa. Oh my goodness. Adele is an inspiration to many people, including me. She's the reason I wanted to become a radio presenter in future.
Oh,
Kizungu chake
wow.
kina flow well. I really missed Adelle Onyango on the show akiwa na Shafi. Kwanza segment ya rauka.
Those are good times. Those are good times.
But then I was still in primary school. Nikimalizia joining high school. Lord.
Way to make me feel old.
And you say how I really wish she comes even once a week on the show. She's on a podcast. Girl done moved on. And now you can sort of catch her on radio now through the podcast. We'll be telling you details about that. But that's Iman James watching from Mombasa.
Thank you. Man.
Someone else says, congrats to Adele for a great job. Keep up the spirit. That's Fiona from Meru. Good morning, Joyce. Whoop, whoop. Adele just went with all the vibes when she was on radio. I just love her personality and the energy she has until now. Go, girl, and God bless you in whatever you do right now. That's Carol tuning in from Juja. And of course, you can continue sending in your feedback to her, as well as your segments that you love here on Full Circle with Joyce if you want to stand that chance to win yourself some masks, courtesy of Full Circle with Joyce, marking 200 episodes and the Red Cross. But Adele, with all these amazing things that you're doing, it does strike me that it also points to some very serious systemic and institutional gaps.
Yeah.
Right? And, working a lot with women who are the backbone of any society, I would say. And then youth being such a tremendous population of this country. Even just with where we're at right now with COVID, as we're saying, we're laughing about traffic building and whatnot, but it's also a point of people are desperate. Like they need jobs, they need to find food for their families. What's your take as far as just where we're at, and what are some of the things you would hope to see as we try and tackle this COVID-19?
I think what's so disheartening is obviously if we look at things youth first, right? There's a youth bulge in the continent, in the country. And with that, then you cannot talk about the lack of employment. And so a lot of youth have started like their small business, even though the environment is not easy for anybody to start a business because of lack of policies and lack of help or in terms of funding and stuff like that. And so you would think that around this time, there would be help for young businesses to be able to be cushioned against this. Even if you think about photographers, right? Their money comes from covering events. There are no events, right? How do you cushion young businesses from the economic effects of this pandemic? I don't hear enough conversations from our government around that. I don't hear enough conversations around domestic violence, which has tripled. The first 3 weeks of the pandemic, it tripled. And that's only cases that were reported, right? We know there are many more that don't get reported. And before COVID, we had been saying that there are not enough shelters just in Nairobi. Before we even start county to county, right? Or looking across the country. If we had sorted out that problem before Corona, it would be easy to say, okay, there's a case reported here. We can move this woman to a safe house during this pandemic. But even now, it's like, okay,
we're so reactive.
What do we do? And everybody who has been working in the space is like, well, we've been saying for a couple of years now.
No kidding.
The pandemic has forced us to look at certain problems, but unfortunately, the people who are tasked with the job to create the solutions for the problems, I feel, are failing us.
Yeah. Considering the work that you've been doing, I mean, you've done everything from gender issues in women to young people and finding them employment. You know, hello, 500,000 jobs. But like, what's in the future for you? I'm curious if you see yourself sort of getting into not politics, but working more in terms of policy. If that opportunity presented itself to you, is that something that you would pursue?
I don't know. I really don't know. Sometimes I think about it, especially when I get angry, and I'm just like, "What are you guys doing? How much is missing again?" You know, it does irritate me a lot, and those thoughts do come. But then I remember having a conversation with Boniface Mwangi, like when I was like, I just get so angry, and he told me how important it is to be an active citizen as well, and to be vocal about certain issues when you can be vocal about it, and to start there. And so nowadays, that's where I think about, okay, my initiative, or calling up partners who I know are, you know, more established NGOs than me, and just saying, how can I help during this time? Okay, what is it looking like? All right, so you need funds, you need people to push out how people can fundraise. Cool, I'll do that. You need ABCD, and just seeing how you can be of service even now. In future, I don't know, I always say, as long as I'm happy. Like, I've learned that, you know, you make plans in life, and then life, look at COVID. Who knew?
We are hearing now our 2020 agenda is the worst investment for the year.
Exactly.
A planner.
Exactly.
No, very true. Okay. Well, we'll be watching the space to see what happens. But let's talk about podcasting now. When you were transitioning from radio, what sort of, like, you know, sprung it for you as far as podcasts? Why podcasts of all the other things? And to be honest, it was very like new and different, because that's the time everybody was going on to YouTube. So if you told me you were going to welcome to my channel, like,
you would understand it.
I completely understood it. But podcasting was almost random but different. It was not very common as yet here in Kenya.
I mean, I get so excited when you talk about audio content. I think I love audio content. I mean, I don't mind video. It's great. And it's really powerful, and it can be a powerful tool of marketing for podcasts as well. So it's not like I'm saying video is nothing or whatever. I just find the art of audio, and especially storytelling using just your voice, to just be so fascinating, and to make people feel a certain way using just audio. It always has been fascinating to me. And I wanted to be able to own my platform, because that's the only way you can dictate what content gets created and how it gets created. And you can dictate every aspect of it, right? I think there was a bit of frustration on my end of wanting to tell certain stories and change up the industry, and being like, I was that millennial in the office of like, guys, things have changed, digital, and sometimes people understood it, sometimes they didn't. And I had to understand that it's not my company at the end of the day. And not to get strung up on it, but to start thinking about, oh wait, why can't I have my own, right? And so I got online. Obviously, I used to listen to Oprah's podcast. I used to listen to Jay Shetty and The Moth, which is a storytelling podcast. And I'd be like, this is so cool, and the numbers are really good. Like, what goes into it? And when I made the decision to resign, I started like researching.
So it's not that you knew what you were going to do before you resigned?
No, it looks like it, but guys,
wow,
I just knew I was done. You know what I mean? And so, because I resigned in December, and so obviously I was serving my 3 months notice. In January is when I was like, hang on, this podcasting thing, it's like, it's really good. You know, at the time when you resign, you're just like, maybe I can open a business. What can't I do? You know? And so then I started looking into what I would need for a podcast. And I started finding out about microphones, because now I'm coming from traditional radio where the microphones are these gigantic things, cables, big machines. And then I saw, oh, there's USB cables, like the world has moved. And I was like, okay, how much is it? I was like, only this much, okay? And you just plug it into a laptop. All right, I get that. So I saw the barriers to entry were really low. And obviously at the time, because of preparing to resign, it took me 4 years to resign.
Wow.
I had saved, and I was thinking about where to kind of invest into my next thing. And so I bought the stuff. I had a cousin who was coming in from the States. So I saved on like shipping costs.
Yes.
I did the African
You have to
thing.
find those cousins,
I
man.
said I did the African thing of do you have space in your and she brought the stuff.
Yeah.
I fixed up the extra room in our home to be a home office
I love how you painted
studio.
it that bright yellow too.
Bright yellow. It's one of my favorite colors. And thankfully I had like heavy curtains because I was thinking about the sound. So I didn't have to do a lot of like soundproofing, which also is
Important.
It's important and takes money to do. And then everything I started before I actually left traditional radio.
Yeah.
I started, my first episode went up on the 18th of March last year.
Tell me about that first show when you first recorded it.
Yeah.
And also explain to us Legally Clueless and Perspective.
Yeah.
Okay. But you take me back to your first show, and I don't know if you remember what you spoke about.
Yeah.
Then, but even just, what was your feeling? Was the anticipation like this is a new radio challenge because you're
Yeah.
here, at your peak, but you're feeling like, oh, I'm kind of bored with this.
Yeah.
Were you nervous? Were you looking at the counter trying to see how many people were tuned in?
Oh my God, no. So how podcasts work, it's like radio on demand. Okay, so it's like I create this radio show and you can listen to it at whatever time. So it doesn't stream live, which is not a problem because I was doing live radio before. So I'm okay with live radio because nobody's looking at you.
Yeah.
I feel for you guys. Live TV.
I feel radio is hard.
It's not. It's like you're moving. I don't know. You just get into it. But TV, I'm just like, oh God. So I wasn't scared of the live aspect because that wasn't there.
Yeah.
Because if you mess up, you can just like edit it out
Yes,
and keep
yes.
going. And so this is specifically for Legally Clueless.
Yeah.
So the first episode, I had just had an like hour-long conversation with one of my closest friends, and I was crying on that call, and I was telling him my fundi has finished, and like for the first time, my fundi hasn't let me down. It's finished on time. My equipment is here, and the only person who's standing between me and starting is me.
You.
And I was like, I don't even know what was I thinking?
Yeah.
Everybody's looking at me like I know what I'm doing. Do they know I don't? And I was like, I don't know what to do in this first episode. At the time, I was having contract renegotiations, right? Meetings, which was so draining. And they require you to be an adult all the time. It's too much. And so my friend told me, then just record that. So when I hung up, that's when the name Legally Clueless came because I felt so clueless in that moment in my life.
Yeah.
And I was like, but it's okay that I'm clueless.
Yeah.
And so I put it out, and the opening jingle, which is still the opening jingle for the podcast today, literally says, I'm clueless, but I don't think I'm the only one. So it's like, I was like calling out to like, Akif, you're the same. Just
like,
come,
hey,
let's
clueless
strengthen numbers. And so I talked about being clueless in episode 1 and just my fears around leaving my job and like starting this new thing.
Amazing.
That was episode 1.
So now that you've recorded it, then it's the day that it actually is out there.
Yeah.
And when you look at the response from that episode, what sort of emotions came up for you?
Oh my God. I didn't feel like I was mad anymore. I was just like, Kumbi, I'm not crazy.
I'm onto something.
I'm onto something. And like, I was like, there's space for human content. There's space for real content.
And that emotion. And I think vulnerability.
And not trying to present this perfect image and talking only of great things or whatever. I was like, there's space for content where you relate to people on a human level. Yeah. And so that made me feel so validated. Wow. I was like,
and people have continued to validate your work. Of course, the podcast has grown tremendously since then.
Has.
And she's been telling us about one of its biggest milestones so far. Yeah. But in 2019, it was actually ranked the most popular Kenyan podcast for the year. That's what, within a year?
Actually, it wasn't even a year long. It was like 9 months. And I was just like, oh my God. Because the first couple of months, remember I'm clueless.
Yeah.
I never used to check the numbers or whatever. I just put it up on whatever platforms. But when I finally did, and I was like, oh wait, there's quite a few people listening. And I was
Yeah.
like, wait, they're not only Kenyans. I'm
Yeah.
like, where are these countries listening? What? But yeah, so I'm just proud that it just grew
Yeah.
organically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now putting that back on radio,
Yeah.
in many ways, you've sort of like reincarnated yourself back into radio
Yeah.
without physically being there.
Yeah.
What drove that move to try and push it into that direction?
I said I wanted to be at the forefront of what new media is going to look like for Africans. And I think storytelling is a key part of African culture. And so my podcast has a different African in every episode sharing a story of something they've experienced or witnessed. And I wanted to be able to redefine what the media model looks like. And having a syndicated show is something I wanted from 2014. I used to listen to like Rick Dees, not because I liked the show, but I'd always, and when he'd say, check my website, I'd go to the website, I'm like, how is this model? Like, okay, all right, what's the revenue model here, the distribution? Okay, what's the math behind all of this?
Yes.
And so I was like, I want that. Like that actually should be happening. And so what it means to me is that it's almost like the new frontier for audio content in Kenya and in Africa, because it's content radio. It means that the barriers to entry, young people who are watching this, you don't have to record your demo, come to Nairobi, go to I don't know which offices and stuff. You can
Sounds
literally
this specific way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can literally, there are platforms like Anchor where you can record your podcast on your phone. You can record and grow a podcast and pitch that to a radio station. And you don't even need to have met them. Like you're literally just sending them this show and they air it. So it's content radio, and it's so interesting. It's just such an interesting model, and I'm so happy that it's finally happened.
Well, we're very happy for you as well. Congratulations to you, truly, on just that's such tremendous success in such a short period of time. But also tell me about Perspective.
Yeah. So Perspective is another podcast, because I was like, let's have two. But that one is not weekly. Legally Clueless is weekly.
Yeah.
But Perspective is every 3 months, and it's a visual podcast, so there's a video element to it. And I just wanted to have a safe space where men and women could talk about gender issues, and just like almost have a cultural audit and say, okay, fine, we were made to think that this was true growing up about women, and that probably has led us to this problematic space we're in, where street harassment is normalized. There's rape culture, things they're jokes that are normalized, that you're like, guys, that's actually not funny, right? And to have that conversation of, where did we learn this from? Okay, this is problematic. How can we unlearn this? And then what becomes our truth after that? That really is the ethos of Perspective. And it gets really heated. I'm just a moderator. There are times I want to jump in and be like, no, but I'm like, let's hear where we are at, so that we know, okay, fine, how do we move from this space that we're at?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Very inspirational, Adelle. Absolutely inspirational. Thank you so much for coming through to the show today.
Me.
And we still have a lot of love for you here through our SMS line here. Someone saying, this is Lucy watching from Karatina. And she says, Adelle is amazing and I love her podcast very much. She is my role model. Loving the show. Kudos, Joyce. Thank you very much. Someone else says, wow, Joyce, thank you for bringing us Adelle Onyango. I loved her voice in radio, although I had never gotten her real name. And he's written it in capital. Adele. Kwani, how did you say it? He's like, I only used to get Onyango.
And I never used to speak, but even my grandma, when she'd listen to it, she'd be like, but you speak so fast. I'm like, I really don't. I really don't.
He says, your voice is cute.
That's interesting and nice. Thank you. I'll take that.
That's Jacob from Meru. And someone here says, final one before I wrap up here. Sarah says, hey, Joyce. I'm watching your dialogue with Adele, and I can confirm that I'm a victim of violence with this devil of COVID-19. It has really shattered my dreams and mostly my plans. Besides marriage and being a mom of a baby girl, I don't have a job, and the quarrel is a result of being a housewife, though it's not my fault. Joyce and Adele, you motivate me. And if watching Full Circle could be a job, then I would say I'm hired full time. Wow.
Yeah, that's
Whoa.
heavy. I think also there's the aspect of mental health during this time.
Yeah. Very important.
It's so important. It's important to, and it's something that I actually spoke about and got a psychologist to come on the podcast just to give a few tips. And it's important for people to keep a routine. It's important for you to reach out to your, we call it social distancing, but we really should call it physical distancing.
Don't be socially
Yeah,
disconnected.
don't.
Yeah.
So try and reach out to your support system and have conversations with them as often as is possible. But there are also resources. There's a helpline, I think it's 1190 that you can call. It's a toll-free number that you can talk to a specialist that can help you
Yeah.
maintain your mental well-being during this time. I think
Yeah.
that's also very important.
Very critical,
Yeah.
especially because I think she said she's also a mom of a baby girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's heavy.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Wow, it's been a great conversation with you. Keep shining.
Thank you
Just
so
keep shining.
much. Thank you so much. And I just want to appreciate everybody who listens to the podcast.
Yeah, and please let them know how can they find you.
So if you check on all my social media platforms, which is Adelle Onyango on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, in the link in the bio, you'll have direct access to the podcast, what times it's going to be on Trace FM, which is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9 a.m. and 8 p.m. And so we're 60 episodes in, and I think it's really cool for people to listen to the stories.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things we can relate with, and you'll stop feeling so clueless alone.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Adele, thank you very much for your
Thanks for
company
having
today.
me.
And thank you to all of you for sending in your love to her and your feedback. We do need to take a break now as we get ready for our final segment for the day. It's going to be our DIY segment, and I'll also be taking in some more of your feedback as far as our giveaway with the Red Cross today. Okay, so stay tuned. This is Full Circle with Joyce. I'll see you shortly.